Welcome to We're Not Wizards. We are the best, but not wizards. Enjoy the show!
Player board game review, Thunderworks games. The notification ping sounds for the fourth time as you stand in front of the mirror in your third outfit change for the last 20 minutes. The bed and floor look like someone set off some kind of glitter bomb in the room. If glitter was a mixture of chainmail, leather armour, boots and swords, you move your foot slightly to steady yourself and you stand fairly heavily on a 6-sided dice, comically showing the number 1 and laughing as you critically fail. This causes you to fall backwards, grab a blanket on your bed and pull the entire contents on top of you, including the once again pinging phone. It lands gracefully and predictably on your face, and you're able to read the previous 4 sent messages. They're short and concise. We're in the tavern. Where are you? We're going into the basement. Where are you? There's some rats in here. Where are you? There's a huge rat in here. Where the hell are you? You sigh. Because as everyone knows, you take role-player games very seriously and you just can't rush character creation. Role-player is a dice manipulation game with a chance to purchase variable player powers and set collection in order to influence your final scoring. Role-player has a few things going when you first play. Firstly, there's the dice selection piece when you're choosing dice from a limited pool to add to your character sheet, and depending on where you place these dice, you'll then be able to change or move them accordingly. Powers include being able to change the values of the dice to physically swapping them with others on your mat. And you can switch dice to the opposite side or re-roll the dice entirely, and you can take a bonus that will mean that items will cost less in the store. It all depends on where you're choosing to place your hard-earned dice. Since you're all choosing from the same set of dice, there can be options to try and scupper other players as you go. Then you move on to the shop phase, where you'll be given a chance to buy equipment, armour, traits and buy orders based on who took the lowest value dice in the previous segment. All of the equipment comes at a cost. However, you can always forego the chance to buy in order to gain gold for the next round. Some of the cars you buy will change your character's tendencies in the game, switching their attitudes slightly, and this will potentially affect the final scoring in the game. You also need to keep an eye on the overall totals of all the dice to see how they square up against your attribute goals. Everything is all about making the most of your dice, so in turn you can make most of your score. There's a reasonable amount of information to keep an eye on to make sure you're maximising the potential end game, and so it'll take a few games to fully understand where you should be concentrating your efforts. In terms of winning, once all of the dice have been played by all the players, and you move to calculate who's the highest score based on several factors on the character sheet, the traits and equipment that have been purchased, and the person who has to get a shift on and actually meet the rest of their team at the local tavern. Roleplayer is clean, well presented, and with so much chunk you'll feel like you've been to the Chunky Chips restaurant and ordered the chunky vegetable soup with the chunky chips, chunks of sweet corn and chunky toffee banana milkshake. There's something really satisfying about how Roleplayer looks end of game, when everyone's board is full to the brim, and it defies you not to spend ages of swirling your hand around the bagged dice for longer than you need to when it's your turn to pick. The iconography is very distinct and removes any chances of confusion as you play. Most importantly, the game boards are clear enough so you can see the state of play for other players without having the need for a big telescope or magnifying glass. And since you're directly competing for a lot of the game, this is a very important consideration. I'm a big fan of the character art. The boards are double-sided with different art on each side. The illustrations on the various traits and equipment cards really help to make the overall aesthetic of the game shine once you're several rounds into playing. And once the game's in full swing, you have a selection of dice, cards and coins on the table. Roleplayer is a surprisingly decent-looking table presence. In terms of learning, there's a decent-sized tome of a rulebook that does well to explain turns with clear explanations that will have you up and running very quickly. Roleplayer is a relatively easy teach, And it's worthwhile running through a couple of dummy rounds before you start to play properly, because it's going to take a few turns before you figure out how you want to strategise against other players and figure out the best way to approach the market. I don't expect too many return trips to the rulebook once you get up and running. Of course, Thunderworks have done what every caring and considerate design company does and put a round reminder on the back of the rulebook. You'll be looking at about an hour to play a game at smaller numbers, but I can see higher player numbers creeping towards 90 minutes to 2 hours before they're finished. During these turns there'll be a lot of simultaneous play, so higher player counts won't add hours to a normal game. In terms of my final thoughts, well, I don't think I've encountered a game which is all about the stats of the player that you play, but doesn't actually involve you stepping out of character creation part of the game. On paper, it maybe shouldn't work. I mean, how interesting and gripping would it be to create a roleplay character? Surely the randomness of the dice itself is going to kill off any potential fun. Luckily, there are a couple of other things that do work in its favour. The first being that the game is all about both mitigating results and manipulating dice rolls in order to achieve the required stats that you've been dealt. It means that any given game there's a subtle difference in what players are trying to achieve, be that trying to gather certain coloured class dice for scoring, or where on the attribute board you'll need to be placing the dice. The addition of the marketplace also allows players to gain points away from the character board. And this is something important considering the entire game is based around random rolls and how you as a player do best with the dice you've been chosen. Secondly, Roleplayer offers randomness on repeated plays with class, backstory and alignment cards that will change on every game. This means that no two games of Roleplayer are ever really going to be totally the same, with your goals changing every time you play, and so you can quite comfortably sit a new player down with an experienced player, safe in the knowledge that the game offers a level playing field. I also appreciate that there's a competitive game where you're actively able to influence the actions of others and in some ways make life more difficult for them as they try to achieve their character stats. It makes a change from a 4-player solo game where they only interact at the end of the game and the winner has gained the crown because they know how the system works and the best way to score points. Honestly, I'm struggling to find something I don't like about it. I guess not being able to use skills again once they've done can be frustrating. If you don't like dice, then you might not like this. Those expecting some actual combat might be disappointed. Don't know. I think Thunderworks might have rolled a 6 with this one. Any tips? Make sure you collect your gold where you can. There's several points in the game that you can, and they can really be a game changer in helping you to buy the right equipment and collect the right sets of armour for big point games. This review is based on the retail version of the game provided to us by the designer and publisher. We're not paid for this review. We give a general overview of the gameplay, and so not all the mechanical aspects of the game can be mentioned. The majority of games that we play are going to take a reasonable number of sessions and playthroughs to fully understand every possibility that they offer. We hope this write-up gives you an idea of whether or not this game is something you'll consider playing or even add to your collection. Our 6 degrees of expectation have been written to make it easier for you to find out what is important to you as a player. Even if we don't like something, hopefully it helps you decide if it's something that you would find out more about. We always suggest you check out a gameplay video to give you a better understanding of the game as it's played. If you want to read this version of the review, you can find it on our website, we'renotwizards.co.uk. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.